Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, finance and accounting pros prepare for change and transformation. I'm your host, Tom Hood, the EVP for Business Engagement and Growth at the AICPA SEMA, the largest association of professional accountants, CPAs and CGMAs in the world. Today, we're going to be talking about the future of finance and making the shift to value partner in the business. Joining me is Graham Collins, Vice President of Investor Relations at BP and a member of our Future of Finance Leadership Advisory Group. Graham, say hello to everybody.
Hi, Tom. Hi, everyone. Great to join you today.
I'm really excited about doing this, Graham, because this was like a continuation of the conversation we had in Las Vegas, right when we had that meeting of our Future of Finance group. So you were one of the kind of early people in the group, and basically from the start. So talk about your experience so far. What have you enjoyed the most, and what have been some of your biggest insights?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. First of all, it's an honor to be part of the Future of Finance Leadership Advisory Group, a great group of people, finance leaders from large organizations, medium-sized, academia, across multiple industries. You've got representation from Amazon Web Services, Prudential, Kimberly-Clark, IBM, Nike. So you've got a broad range. And what's really nice when we get together and we talk is we find we're all grappling with very similar issues when it comes to the finance transformation. It's actually really reassuring to hear the issues they're facing and find we've actually got a lot of consensus and a lot of agreement of what the future of finance looks like, what we want finance to look like in 2025, in 2030, and what are the big issues we're facing as well in terms of value creation, access to talent, the hybrid working model, very similar issues. And what's really nice about the group and the work that we do is it's giving back to the profession in terms of coming up with practical solutions for members of the profession to use, such as a model for a competency framework and how to measure where you are on your transformation journey. So really enjoying it, Tom.
Yeah, it's been, I like to say we're standing on the shoulders of giants because you guys are doing some really, really good work. And you've been doing sessions like this, LinkedIn Live, to communicate out to the masses. You guys have presented at some of our conferences. We're running panels with many of you. So it really has been awesome, I think, for us, and surprising that companies of all those different sizes and industries really did come together around all of those issues, didn't they? I mean, that's been the really cool part of this. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about, so how has finance changed through this pandemic? Because that's really what got us going. Is like we were looking at hopefully the end of the pandemic about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we weren't sure, but we said, what's it going to look like on the other side, and how do we start preparing for it? But yeah, talk a little bit about how you think things have changed, and what has been the big pieces of that.
Well, when I think about a finance transformation, Tom, I think of an acronym, M.A.D, M.A.D. Easy to remember, you have to be mad to do a finance transformation. So the M is for mindset, and the A is for agile, and the D is for digital. And those are all really important elements of a finance transformation. So those are the big elements. And just quickly talking about those, and then I'll come on to the impact through the pandemic. I think mindset is about being open to change, embracing change, being ready to fail, and celebrating failure because you're experimenting and trying things out. And the tone from the top that the finance leader set is really important in this. So mindset's a really important element of a change journey that people often forget about. The next letter was the A, agile. Many people may have heard of that. It's a brand for a way of working. Others may know Lean, Six Sigma. There's lots of them out there. In BP, we've been using agile to great effect. It's made a huge difference. It's really empowered people to not feel they just need to wait to be told what's done, but to get done, but actually feel empowered to get on and deliver. We prioritize much more efficiently and effectively, and we're much better at making value-based decisions quickly, efficiently, and getting on and delivering. So it's really increased efficiencies. And then the D is for digital. People will often think, well, that's the data science, right? Well, digital is much more than that. Yes, you need the data science, you need the tools, and you need the systems and platforms, but there's other elements to the ecosystem to be successful in digital. You need the capability and skills to deliver it. You need the data. If the data's not good, you're not going to get a good outcome. And you actually need the demand, you need the customers. If you can come up with the coolest tool, but actually if people don't have again the right mindset to use it, it's not going to work. So those for me are sort of big frameworks. And then when I think about the pandemic, I think of the pandemic as something of a myth buster. We held a lot of beliefs in finance going into the pandemic. We believed you couldn't close the books at the end of the month without all being in the office for 14 hours a day for a week or two. Well, guess what? We proved that not to be the case. We closed the books from home. We believed that you couldn't collaborate effectively or make progress without all being around a table, and virtual collaboration wouldn't work. Well, when that was the only way to do it, guess what? We made it work, and it worked really well. So we busted a lot of myths, I think, and that's been set us up really well for the finance transformation, because I think that's opened a lot of our minds to, well, if some of those norms that we held and believed were not right, actually, can we challenge some other things? And that's opened people's mind to really support and get on to the finance transformation.
So you just like hit a whole bunch of great stuff in that little string there. But I love M.A.D. That is, I'm going to use that. If you want, I will make sure I attribute it to you. But that's a classic one. So and mindset, if you remember, we did research, and I'll put it in the comments for this show. We did research right at the beginning of the pandemic. In fact, the research was done prior, but we released it in March of 2020. And that showed, finance transformation, it's about people. And it was like mindset was 39% of the success factor in a transformation. So you were like spot on with that. Now, agile, it's funny because we've been polling the group about competencies. And I think it was at Engage a year ago when we did some polling there, and agile showed up in like the top 7 or 8. Since that time, it's been over a year. Now agile is showing up in like the 3 to 5, like it's like the 3rd or 5th, and it came out of nowhere. So did you guys go through a system of training your people and all that on there? Like any tips for people thinking about how they get agile and faster?
We did. In fact, it was really interesting because it was grassroots. It actually came from the teams and the people sort of at the front line. It wasn't management driven. In fact, management kind of said, what is this thing that everyone's doing? We want to understand it, and said, this is really cool, and we're very supportive of it. But you do need to give people space to try it. What we found is, of course, some people were hesitant and said this wouldn't work, or it sounds too risky. We need to be in a low risk business. We produce oil and gas, for example, in BP. But actually, you can, help to reduce risk and make decisions more quickly, which actually reduce risk. So we found it was actually really, really helpful for the company. We let people get up after it, but we did find that some people were resistant at first. But everyone, once they tried it, and we said, do you want to go back to how you worked before? Everyone said no. No one wants to go back.
I love that, and that's something that I think in this age, everyone's got to move their cycles faster, right? We got to get faster cycle times.
For sure, yeah. It's around efficiency and effectiveness, and Agile can really help with that.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great story. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about you laid it out, the vision back in Nashville, which, by the way, remember in Nashville, Pascal Finette showed that research that had finance was like the lowest agile group in a corporation. Like obviously IT, because agile methodology comes from IT, so they were like number 1. Then I think marketing, like it went down the list, but finance was down to the very bottom. So there's a lot of room for improvement there. And it's great to see that you guys are in one of those cases of like leading the way in that area. But back then we said, all right, let's look at 2025 and 2030. And you guys came up with a whole bunch of like little phrases from like from this to that. I'm going to read a few out, but I want you to like talk about your take on that exercise and any favorites that came out of that notion. So we talked about rear view mirror to windshield, hindsight to strategic foresight, a shift from cost to value, core versus core and the edge. That was being able to, for finance to support innovation projects, I think was what was in that one. This one happens to be my favorite, moving from the CF no to the CF KNOW no. Scorekeeper to intelligent advisor and value partner, tangibles to tangibles and intangibles, like those kind of things. And so what was remember that exercise and what stuck out, and anything that, insights, or what's your favorite from all that?
Yeah, I think it was a great exercise. There were some great phrases that the group came up with. Like you, I really like the CFO no, NO, to the CFO no, KNOW, along with the scorekeeper to the value partner. And I think those are along the same lines in terms of, rather than the CFO or the finance representative at the table just saying, no, we don't have the budget for that. They actually know the business. They have a seat at the table. In fact, the business doesn't want to start a meeting without finance there at all levels of the organization, not just because they know the budget, because they know the business, they know the strategic drivers, they know the value drivers, they know the risks and opportunities. So they're a really valued member of the team. I think maybe for me, another one that really stood out, I think we had something around data science, around descriptive to prescriptive analytics.
Yeah.
That one for me, as I recall from back then, was really stood out for me. It's around, how do we move from saying we use data science, but actually really you're just using an algorithm to produce a report, to data science that can really help with decision making, value creation, and risk reduction. So I remember the exercise, Tom. It was great, and there are things for us to reflect on and continue working towards.
Yeah, and then I think the other piece of that, back to your data thing, is that the idea of storytelling, right? Being able to communicate and really engage the business in what the numbers are telling us. And a lot of the people in the business don't understand how to do that. They can't interpret those numbers the way finance and accounting pros can. So big value add there for sure. All right, now I want to shift to you, because you've got a relatively new role. So you're like an exemplar of what we're talking about, right? Moving up into a value partner role. So you have a new role as a vice president of investor relations, and you moved from the VP of financial digital transformation to the VP of finance and economics to your current role in just 3 years. So you got to tell me a little bit about that. So talk about your journey and what are you working on now, and then we'll go a couple more questions around that. But yeah, tell me about how this happened.
Yeah, sure, Tom. It sounds like a lot of moves. What actually happened right in the middle of that, in 2020, BP launched a new purpose and strategy to reimagine energy for people and the planet. And as part of that, there was a restructuring and reorganization and changing of job titles. Fundamentally, through that period, both before and through and after, I was working on finance transformation in different flavors, in that sort of mindset, agile, digital, overall framework. So been in that space for a while. But you're right, Tom. At the beginning of this year, I did make a bit of a step change into investor relations. Now in BP, that reports to the CFO, so it's still part of the finance function. But it's a different role. It's about working with the financial community, communicating, helping the financial community understand what BP's working on, our strategy, our near-term and long-term performance, and listening to the financial community. So it has been a very different role, very exciting, always something different every day, lots going on. But what's really nice is on my side job is I still lead finance transformation for investor relations in BP. So still get to do my mindset, agile, digital.
So all right, so what are some of the? Can you talk a little bit about what you're focusing on and all that? So are you doing? It sounds like talking through the community. It's not just reporting on ESG, like someone's telling you, here's what we need to report on, and you do that part. It's a bigger, what should we be focusing on, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's around. So when I talk about financial community, I'm talking about our investors.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Talking about the brokers and research analysts, and for example, debt companies. So a range of financial people in the finance community that invest in BP in different ways or report on BP. And so it's about communication. It's about communicating our strategy, topics such as ESG, environmental, societal, and governance, obviously a very big issue for a company like BP, about our performance. But it's very much about listening. It's about listening to investors, what they're looking for from a company like BP, for them to invest further, what they like about what we're doing and what they want us to do more of compared to some of our peers. So yeah, always something different and very exciting.
That is super. Congratulations, by the way. And I can say I knew you when, because you're doing that's a big job, I'm sure, as it relates to all of this. All right, let's kind of close this down with what advice would you give to other finance chiefs who are navigating this future of finance and the expanded role of value partnering that we're all espousing?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I think what I would say is two or three things. First of all, this is not a time for thinking tactically. This is about a time for thinking big and strategically. It's about setting your North Star. And by definition, the North Star is always a little bit out of reach, but it gives you somewhere to follow. It gives you a direction. And as long as you make sure you're moving in that direction, then you're going to be moving your finance transformation forward. So you need to think big and strategically. You also, what's really important, I mentioned before, but I'll say again, you really need to set the right tone. You can't expect your team to change and your team to embrace a finance transformation if you're not doing it yourself. You've got to set the tone, you've got to inspire people, you've got to have the right mindset, and you can bring the organization along. Along with that, think broadly, as we talked about, just some digital tools isn't going to cut it. It's that M.A.D, that mindset, agile, digital, that you need to think broadly. And I think where I would leave it is what you'll need to do is upskill the organization. You can't just, this is new skills. Change itself is a skill, and the skills you need for a new finance organization. Your people are fantastic. Your people completely have the capability to be in the finance organization of the future that you want, but you can't expect them to just know how to do it. They need to have the opportunity to upskill. You'll probably need to do a little bit of recruitment. You might need to recruit for some specialist skills such as data science, but actually the main thing is upskilling your organization. It will bring them along on the journey. It will give them skills for the future, make them feel good, and help your finance transformation be successful.
Awesome. Wow, you just laid it out beautifully, Graham, which I mean I knew from just listening to your journey. And it's again, that's a kind of all through the group, right? They're all on this type of journey. They might be doing it slightly different, but everyone that we've been interviewing, it's amazing. We should write a book from all you guys about what your advice for this transformation. I love the MAD thing, mindset, agile, and digital. That's critical. The upskilling is a big one, right? And your notion of leadership, we have to lead them through this. So your point about a North Star, a bunch of the finance teams had visions for their own team in addition to the corporate vision. So like they lined up the corporate vision to their vision and did that. Did you do any of that at BP?
Yeah, very, very much so. We had the corporate vision, and then you have the finance function vision, and then looking within our own teams. It's what's our role in that? We understand where the company is trying to go. How are we supporting that? Make sure what we're doing is in service of that, and that helps us drive the transformation in the right direction.
It also helps motivate your younger staff who love purpose, right? It's a major. We know that from engaging your people. And then the whole upskilling, obviously we've been doing a lot of research on that. So we've got resources to help folks out there doing that. But this has been a great conversation. Any final thoughts and anything you want to share?
I think I would just reflect on your last point there about purpose. The generations coming into the workplace now very much want purpose, and we found that very much in BP prior to 2020, when we hadn't announced our transition to a low carbon and net zero by 2050 company. There wasn't such a demand from people to come and be part of the company, but with that purpose, the younger generation, older generation, everyone is knocking at our door saying we want to be part of it. So purpose is actually very important, and I think that's a great place for us to finish.
That is spot on. So anyone out there, I want to thank Graham for doing this again, and you can connect to him on LinkedIn. It's Graham Collins, and Graham Collins, Collins, and you'll see him as he's out there from BP. So yeah, we've already covered all the takeaways, which are numerous here. And again, I want to thank you for this. I want to tell our audience to thank you guys for jumping in here. We'll be back here on LinkedIn on the first and third Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern, and we'll see you then. Thank you.